It is my pleasure to introduce the next panel. The panel is entitled "The Future is Now: AI and Emerging Technology in the Region." This panel will explore how technology and innovation are shaping the now and turning it into the future. Please allow me to introduce our panelists. Mr. Abdullah Asiri, founder and CEO of Lucydia. Mr. Hussam Alduraiei, CTO of Saudi Azm. Mr. Greg Baxter, Chief Digital and Transformation Officer, HP Inc. Mr. Stefano Bertamini, former CEO of Rajhi Bank. Are we missing one of our panelists? Is he here today? Did he not? Oh, here we are. Okay. And this panel will be moderated by our very own Joe Miller. Thank you, Joe, for taking care of this, and let's get it started.
All right. Thank you, Noha. I get my mic up just a bit. Oh, that's better. Okay. So thank you all for joining me here today. I actually am very excited for this panel for two parts, right? I think we have one of the best topics because I love talking about the future of AI, right? And we can talk about the application of that in region. And then also just the resumes of what we have here on stage and all the perspectives that we're bringing here. So if you missed it, we've got a few people on stage here. Furthest from me is Greg Baxter, Chief Digital and Transformation Officer at HP. Next, we have Stefano Bertamini. So he's a board member at AI 966, former CEO of Rajhi Bank, amongst many other advisor and board member roles. And then Abdullah Asiri over here, CEO and founder of Lucydia, and I hear serial innovator. So we're lucky to have them all on stage here to talk a little bit about what's happening with AI and the ROI. So I'll give you just a second, maybe a minute apiece to further on that introduction and talk a little bit about the work that you've been doing with AI over the last year. So Abdullah, I'll point to you first and we'll work our way to the left. You want to try another microphone here? Yep.
Test. All right, it works. So first of all, assalamu alaikum, everyone. I'm so happy to be here. And congrats for Encorta and their amazing team for these great achievements. It's really inspiring what you guys are doing. So I'm Abdullah Asiri, founder and CEO of Lucydia. So what we do, basically, we are one of the first AI companies actually in the Middle East. We started in 2016. We develop our own AI models and we develop our own AI applications in the field of customer experience and marketing automations. And when we say how we use AI, basically it's a different conversation because we are one of the AI providers to the markets, not necessarily AI users. But so what we did is, aside from providing AI solutions for our customers to automate customer understanding and customer engagement, to reduce a lot of costs, but we also did use AI inside the company. We use our own AI models for things like qualifications for leads, for CV screening, and that's prior LLMs and prior Gen AI. Today, with these technologies there, of course, we're using LLM in different functions, mainly in programming in the engineering departments. And yeah, it's been an exciting journey, and we're planning to actually to invest more on developing and using these solutions.
And we look forward to hearing from you more because I hear you're present in over 11 countries, 75 million users. So I'm sure we're going to have a lot of talks around ROI success and implementation. Stefano, over to you.
So first of all, again, thank you very much for having me. It's an honor to be here. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. I think from my perspective, the biggest impact AI is having, it's really transforming the global financial services industry. It's powering advanced analytics that are impacting virtually every part of the business, from the front end, whether it's sales and marketing, whether it's using chatbots, to fraud, AML, even helping with coding. So it's, I think, a revolutionary technology, and obviously data is at the heart of it. So I think this is where Encorta has a unique position, and again, very excited to be here.
Yes, and banking and financial services is going to be a really interesting application to talk about for AI. Over to you, Greg.
Thank you, Joe, and welcome. Thank you all for hosting us and for being here. I see it, I guess, from two perspectives. One, from a Hewlett and Packard or HP perspective, we're rolling out technology where we hope every personal computer becomes a personal assistant, high-powered, able to predict, support, and be more than just the processing power, but be actually the assistant to your life. But then what do you do with it? At HP, we adopted a strategy really around three key components. First was safety, building a sandbox so that people could use the technology without risking data leakage, data loss, or any exposure externally. The second was inclusion, which is training all of the people, getting them all involved in it. AI for us is not a theoretical science, it's an applied technology. The more people that understand it, the more likely they are to understand how to apply it to their jobs. And the third was impact. A lot of talk about the potential impact of AI. We really needed to focus on a few use cases that we believed would have a material difference. And our three were software development, training our software teams. We delivered about a 10% improvement on testing and then another 10% on code quality and development. So we're at about 20% productivity improvement in that area. Second, content creation. So building proposals, RFPs, product material, multi-language material around the world. The third was in support, where we enabled chatbots, etc., to try and reduce the easier demands and use our technicians to specialize in more complicated customers. So they were the three big areas that we focused on.
Thanks, Greg. Now, I do want to start delving in a little bit into the implementation, right? What are companies looking at? I'm going to point to you, Abdullah, first. So the question I ask of you is actually two-part, right? You mentioned that there's your own internal AI strategy, how you implement and measure ROI, and then you're also consulting many, many different customers who are adopting your platform as well. So how do you approach that internally and externally?
So it's two different games, but the outcome is the same. When we pitch our solution to our customers, all about ROI. When we are using AI internally, it's also about ROI. The ROI in terms of productivity, ROI in terms of cost reduction, either for the customers and for Lucydia. And this is what we've been seeing. Today, for example, we're using our customer service AI agent with one of the largest e-commerce platforms in the MENA. And the plan actually is to, because this is one of the e-commerces that will have seasonal spikes. And at certain times of the year, they hire more than 500 customer support agents to handle the spike for 3 months. And today we're working with them so that they don't need to hire those 500 people, which translate in a saving of more than 7 million riyal, which is around $1 or $2 million. So again, it's ROI, and internally it's the same thing. But what we did internally to increase adoption of AI, because it's sometimes you face resistance, even if you are an AI company. Again, people are used to do things in certain way, and when you go there and you try to change the way they're doing business, not necessarily you find adoption. So what we did is we hired a dedicated Gen AI specialist in the company, and his role is to increase adoption of AI across different functions of the company. So he would go to marketing and would see everything that can be automated using Gen AI, and he would implement that and do the same thing for sales and other departments. And what we saw as an ROI, again, I am a data guy, so I love numbers, talk by numbers. Where so far in the engineering department, programming and development, productivity increased more than 30%. This is very conservative, and this 30% translates to a significant amount of money when you talk about that. So this is the way we are looking at internally and externally.
Great.
Yeah,
I'm going to move
Joe,
over to Greg on this.
I would just add one point on the ROI discussion that for us, it's starting with the problem. And so the key metric really shouldn't be related to AI. It should be related to the problem. And if I think about an example at HP, we deployed Copilot across 20 or so thousand of our employees. It's reasonably expensive. We identified about a 3% productivity improvement. Now, one could say that's about 800 people. but you can't actually capture a saving of 3% of all of these people. And so and part of the challenge was that we didn't have a clear problem we were solving. I'm also on the board with AI 966 with Steve. And although we have interesting technology, neural nets, adversarial models, the key thing is trying to drive acquisition, retention, and risk management. And the metrics on those things are much easier to measure. And so I think the important thing on ROI is focus on the problem and metrics of the problem, not on the technology.
Correct. Great add-on. And Stefano, I want to ask you as well, right? So on the implementation perspective, right, coming from a banking background, we've seen a lot of AI projects either fail or succeed, right? More often fail, right? And some of the challenges are maybe defining what that ROI should be upfront, or possibly not even defining the problem. So let's take this from a banking perspective, right? From your industry, how are you seeing people experimenting with this, and where are they being successful?
Well, so first of all, you have to get senior management to understand the value and what AI can do, because people read and they know that AI is happening, but they can't quite put their arms around it. So there's a big education component where you have to get the senior teams to understand, and then quite frankly, you've got to do it bottom up. Usually bottom up is a lot easier. They're younger, they're more tech savvy, so they're probably already using, chat bots, and they're using, chat GPT, et cetera. So they have higher level of familiarity, but then you have to find a way to get both to come together, because in most organizations, it's always the middle layer that slows everything down. So, I've done things with teams, for example, creating hackathons where we let, a large, part of the company participate, and then have the management, hear the ideas and be forced to make choices as to, we'll try this and we won't try that. So that's something that works quite well. The second is site visits. There's nothing like seeing a project or an opportunity or a model or something AI related from another company's perspective, where you see how they're doing it, you see that people believe in it. So I found also that getting people exposed to the technology, exposed to customers that are using it, helps them to visualize and understand a lot better what's going to happen. So I think you have to take a multi-layer approach, but you also need partners, because this is new technology. You need to implement it. You need to train people. So you have to take a multifaceted approach if you're really going to get the understanding and the buy-in in order for it to work. A lot of the issues people are having is very ad hoc, a small pocket here or there. People don't really see the value, and it's not an overall strategic view of how do we become truly an AI-centric company? How do we apply this to literally every part of the business? And until that begins to happen, I think that's why you're seeing some limited success, a few stories here or there, but it has to be holistic. And the people that have embraced that are beginning to outperform. And I think that's the difference between the companies that truly believe and those that are just experimenting and wanting to tick a box and saying, yes, we're doing something for AI, keep the board happy, but it's not really in the DNA of the company.
Yeah, I will just add to your points. I think I agree with you. And what we see actually from some companies that we work with is sometimes there's a push from the board about using AI regardless. So we have to manage expectations. Sometimes the push and the expectation is actually unreasonable. That's AI, you can just throw it to any problem and it's going to be solved. It's going to solve this problem magically, and this is not true in many cases. So expectation has to be met. This is number one. And also the idea that AI will and should replace people. This is also should be, you should rethink about this, because I believe that, and companies also should believe that AI, to succeed, it should augment people, it should work with people. You should not have a goal of, from day one to replace all people, or from day one to have an AI that does everything from A to Z. You have to manage your expectation as a user of AI, and you have to start also gradually. You don't start with the high stakes systems. You start with the low stakes system. You start to build the internal muscle in the company of how to be AI friendly company, how to start to use AI. And then you go there from there gradually. This is what we saw. And I think moving forward, because you saw the report from MIT about the failure of using AI, maybe 95%, I think. And I think this is one of the reasons.
Great. So let's talk about next. I'd love to dig into this a little bit more, right? So AI companies are plugging in AI, expecting results. Often they're coming across a lot of different implications along the way. So I want to hear from each of you. We'll start with Greg, maybe. What are some of those implications? We've talked about a little bit, maybe educating leaders or educating users, but what are some other things that people should consider when they're implementing AI?
Yeah, I think from an organizational point of view, having been involved in digital transformation for some time, you find typically a third of the people are excited, a third are neutral, let's prove it and then I'll do it, and a third will resist. And the way to get over that is to answer the question of what's in it for me, what's in it for the employees. And I think the first place to start, and Steve touched on this a little bit, you need to have a compelling and ambitious vision for the company in a digital and AI world. And if you can create that compelling vision of how the company will be better for shareholders, better for employees, better for customers, then employees want to be part of that and you win their heart. And that's, I think, the first step. You don't try and tell them to go use AI. It's what is the vision of the company? And as leaders, you have to have that vision that excites them. Once you've excited them and you've won over their heart, then it's about training and developing them and having them work out ways to apply AI into their areas to help build a strategic roadmap. And I call that winning their heads or their minds. And only then do you get their hands involved. Only then do you get them to apply it creatively with real passion and a real sense of ownership. And so it's this process of win their hearts, win their heads, and then you win their hands, managing that ambition that they want to be part of, as opposed to saying, here is AI, use it and deliver what I want. Enable them to be part of a bigger story and a bigger vision, which is what the hope of AI delivers.
Stefano, I'll pass it over to you because you've led multiple organizations through digital transformations of their own. You've revolutionized how banking has happened at Rajhi Bank in many cases, right? So it could be AI or just maybe an organizational change like Greg mentioned here. How did you approach that and where did you see successes during those transformations?
Well, something that was mentioned at the beginning during the opening remarks is data. A lot of organizations aren't ready because their data isn't ready. It's sitting in different systems. The definitions don't align. The systems don't talk to each other. So it's also very difficult when you're trying to drive a data-driven digital transformation if the data and the systems that you have are not user-friendly. So obviously there's a lot of middleware being created. There's a lot of innovative solutions that are coming out to accelerate that process. So you have to have the right foundation on the data. So that's very critical. And this is also one of the reasons that some of these projects fail, just the data integrity isn't there. They're not using the right data. And therefore, when you make decisions from that, you have an issue. So that's a big area that needs to be addressed. The second is, this is a cross-functional effort. You tend to have pockets that are working on it, but they're not really thinking the process end to end. And until you get that linkage of people understanding that this impacts multiple areas, you also tend to have issues along the way. And in financial services in particularly, compliance is a huge area. So is anything relating to security. And what tends to happen is those people get involved at the end after the teams have done everything, and then they realize, oh, we can't do this, or I've got to now convince a regulator. So there's a lot of planning and thinking you have to do in addition to education. So if you don't have the right program office, if you don't have the right strategy, the right vision, it's difficult to execute these because these are big machines and you can't turn them overnight. So unless you systematically think, and as also Greg mentioned, you have to find your champions, people that believe, that are influential in the organization, that can help lead others. Because again, this is not a one-person exercise. It's a full engagement, and you need people that can champion in different parts of your organization that understand what you're trying to do and help drive and bring everybody along.
Great. And we hear it all the time, right? This challenges that organizations are having of getting things like data foundations stood up, right? It seems to have made I think a lot of people approach AI in the sense of, hey, this is going to solve all my problems. But really, it's created a bigger problem for a lot of companies, right? They see that the same issues of having disparate data systems, everything separate, has become more exaggerated and aggravating to the organization without compiling that foundation. Now, Abdullah, I'm going to point to you here for this one because we've talked about digital transformation within our own organizations, but you're pushing that to hundreds, thousands of different customers today, right? And so your touch just can't be nearly as high touch as it would be within your own organization. So how do you step into your customer accounts and guide them and advise them in a way to make sure that they're successful?
So again, the number one key is to work with them as one team, is to integrate with them, because if we are implementing an AI solution, and our AI solutions usually they are workflow based, and basically it's meant to offload some of the work from humans so they can focus on more innovative things. So number one is to work with them as a one team. Number two is to manage expectation, as I mentioned, is that it's not silver bullets, and it should be a collaboration. It's not us coming in and we're gonna fix the problem for you. You have to work with us as well. And part of working with them, actually, which is important to your point, Stefano, is readiness, data readiness, data governance readiness, policies readiness. Because at the end of the day, we don't want to implement an AI solution that would expose some sensitive data from the customer side to the outside. So also these kind of things, sometimes the customer themselves or the department we work with, they're not really aware of the compliance needs. Especially because when you use AI, it's a new technology, and there are a lot of things that can go wrong. So also educating our customers in terms of compliance, and the localization that's needed to be done. So all these things had to happen, and then setting really measurable ROI, because at the end of the day, as I mentioned, businesses are doing this because to either increase productivity or to decrease costs directly. So to define these ROI from the beginning, the success metrics that we should follow and we should track, and have the commitment from the customer side to work with us side by side, and then deploy. After deployment, work is not done, and this is very important, because after deployment, the real work actually comes, because that's when you see how things are working in production. And this is exactly why companies like Salesforce recently, they launched their flight simulations, basically for AI or AI agents to be tested on a duplicate of production level kind of work environment, so you can test and see and improve before you go live. So these are the steps that we usually do with these companies.
Great. And I want to dig into that plan a little bit more, and I want to emphasize a little bit of like the governance and trust and security around AI. So I'm going to run around circle a little bit, and I'm going to start with you, Greg, around this. Is how do you ensure AI systems are trustworthy? How do you ensure they're explainable, especially when you're dealing with global company requirements?
Yeah.
Right? And to you, what does transparent AI really
Look,
look like?
and this is a lot of people in the audience are very familiar with data, very familiar with analytics, and historically we have done a lot of this AI work. It's been going on for well over a decade, 20, 30 years. The difference now is that rather than having a dedicated team of data scientists doing it, who you can put in particular areas, train them up, make sure that the sandbox is restricted, you've now got just about every employee using these sorts of technologies. And so you do need to create enterprise secure environments for people to train on. I think the other technique that we use, and we use it at AI 966 quite a bit, is we do use unsupervised learning. So we do allow the machines to identify features that are most predictive of acquisition or retention or risk. But there's a difference between feature identification and feature selection. So the decision of which features you want to take out of the model and put into the weighted model to say, I will use these features with this weighting to make my decisions, is a separate discussion. And that enables you as an organization to be able to take the best artificial intelligence predictive models and decide, are there any variables or features or conclusions here that I'm not comfortable with? So for example, if you're a bank and you're targeting a particular segment and serving them well, the model may come out and say that that is not the most attractive segment and go and target a different segment. You as an executive would look at this and say, well, we need to retrain the model, or we need to adjust the weighting of that. So I think we need to separate unsupervised identification of features with supervised selection of them.
And Stefano, over to you. What governance frameworks do you see companies needing to have? In your banking experience, it's all about risk management, right? So what's your take on this?
Look, there's some basics that are non-negotiable, and then there's this whole evolving landscape. So first of all, as Greg mentioned, you need the firewall. Okay, you have to make absolutely sure customer data and proprietary company data does not leave the premises. So that's kind of the first building block you have to have in place. And then obviously who can access what data internally is quite important. So that should be there already from a systems perspective, but you need this overall check to make sure that that's in place. The second thing that I think happens is you need ethics as to how you're using this, right? Because like everything else, the company should have values, and in theory, that framework's been there, but you need to rethink about it. How would you apply that in scenarios? If you use this data, are you creating a bias? Are certain groups, as Greg mentioned, being excluded, which is separate from the analytical component? So you have to begin to build that into your process. And increasingly now, the regulators want a lot more transparency. So you have to be able to explain why things are used. And even in Europe now, for example, you have to potentially, I think this is evolving, you have to tell the customer they're dealing with an AI. There's an AI involved in the decision. This is a chatbot-based AI, and you want to be able to opt out. Now, whether that becomes a standard or not, I tend to see Europe is always on the further end. Other places are more willing to innovate and learn along the way. So I think it's a spectrum, and it depends on what industry you're in, what regulatory environment you're in. And then that tends to impact, how much you need, but you need to think about it from a systemic perspective, not just deal with a particular issues. How do you ensure that you're thinking about this from as many aspects as possible? If this were to, someone put an article in the newspaper about how you went about this, would you be happy with that? Or you say, oh, no, we really can't. So there's a lot of common sense tests that I think you can apply. But a lot of this is a bit black box, and this is where it gets tricky, is how do you ensure you can explain what's occurring as opposed to, I just got something, I plugged it in, and, out came the answer, particularly when it's a risk-based decision or it impacts a customer.
Great, and I'd love to dig into that ethics piece a little bit more, and we talked about feature selection over here, right? But so talking about Lucydia, right? Present in 11 different countries, many different Arabic dialects, right? And with that, you have to be able to build a model in such a way that you don't introduce any sort of bias into that, right? So can you talk to me about how Lucydia approaches that to address the cross-cultural context of the Arabic dialects?
Yeah, sure. I think this is very important point because we are talking here about localization. And when we say localization, is not only our AI agent or the services you provide to your end customer, they should speak the same language in the same tone, in the same dialect, which what we do, but also they have to be, the AI have to be culturally aware, aligns on values, align on culture. Because at the end of the day, we are, here in the Middle East and in Saudi and different countries, the region is different from other places in the world. We have different values. Some things are not acceptable to say to customers. Some emojis are not acceptable to share with customers. So basically, this is why we use our own proprietary models, because they are all trained locally. They are trained with the data set from the region, which is built for the region. And this is how we actually kind of determine which AI model we use for which customer, depending on the industry, depending on the country itself. And yeah, so basically, this is the way we are doing it.
Great. Now I'm going to move the conversation forward a little bit, and let's go talk about the future of AI, right? So in this case, I'm going to ask you, Greg, here a question around the future of AI and see what you think about this. So put yourself 5 years from now, right? How do you think AI will change the fundamental knowledge or fundamental nature of knowledge work?
Look, it's what a great question. Let me answer it in a couple of phases. One is, I think 90% of the cost, the friction, the opportunity, the experience of companies exist in systems and processes that today's AI can address. And so I think in 5 years, the opportunity to get down towards zero processing friction, to be truly targeting and able to do we do today so much better. I think that needs to be the return on investment focus. And I think there's a lot of pressure on AI now to deliver value versus promises. And for the next 5 years, I think the greatest opportunity is to streamline the way we operate, serve, and connect with our customers and our back office. Having said that, I think what AI does is it solves the what question that is can research anything and find out an answer to what. And when we think about how we learned at school, we learned a lot of what things, what is this, what is that calculation. That no longer is going to be problematic. The two questions that become more interesting are why. That is, what is the problem? Why do we want to solve a particular problem? What is the outcome we're trying to solve for? And how do we implement it? And I think humans will still have a phenomenal role in the why question. That is, what do we want? How do we create much more value for our shareholders and our employees and our customers? And then how do we bring that to life culturally in a region, in a country, for a particular people? So I think there'll be this movement away from what a company does, more towards why it does it and how it brings it to life with real values.
Great, thank you. And I'm going to move the same question over to you, Abdullah. And this one ties in. You can 5 years time. We're at 2030, right? Vision 2030 will take place. So, where do you see Saudi Arabia's place within the global AI perspective? And how do you think the work that you're doing today will influence the world globally?
Well, number one, I'm glad that we are from this country, because I see that Saudi Arabia is taking the AI revolution very seriously to be a part of the contributor of AI advancements globally, not only locally. And we see this by the large investment that happened recently from Humane to other companies and other initiatives and investments. So the way I see Saudi Arabia will be one of the leading countries in the world who are driving AI forward. That's number one. That's for sure. I see it just like I see you next to me. And Lucydia, we hope you contribute to that because we are one of the first, if not the first, AI company in Saudi and in the region. And we are powering the majority of the government entities in Saudi with our AI solution, AI agent. Same thing with the private sector. Now expanding toward GCC and other countries. So we're exporting this Saudi AI-made technologies to other countries within the region, which also helps putting Saudi in the map of AI globally. So this is what I see happening in the future, and in a place where AI will be so fundamental. It will be part of every workplace. It will be normal to have an AI team with you in the next 5 years. Actually, as a matter of fact, I think in the next 5 years, it will be normal to have a team of AI agents to work with you, and also it will be normal that you as an employee will have your own AI agent that understand everything that you do, have access to all your knowledge and email. So in the future, I think we don't need to have these frequent meetings, because our AI agent can meet with our colleague AI agent basically to have this information sharing and exchange, which is going to free ourselves to do much better things. So this is how I see it.
I'm all for a world where there's less meetings on the calendar. I'm sure everyone would be happy to see that as well. So I'm all for the agents meeting with each other. Now, Stefano, we'll talk about this a little bit. We as humans, maybe just in the realm of technology, we tend to overestimate the near value, but underestimate the long-term value of what some things can bring. So I'm curious, where will you see us in 5 years? And is there anything that you've seen today, maybe AI breakthrough or trend, that you think maybe has been underestimated today that you think will have compelling value in 5 years' time?
Well, I think the big difference is that things will be hyper-personalized. I mean, it'll be for one person. The way we talk to you, the way we communicate, the products we offer. So everything's going to be down to one. It's going to be highly accurate, as opposed to frustrating today when you get an offer from the company, you're already a customer, you go, don't your systems know? So I think that's one aspect. The second is it's going to be seamless, right? You won't even think about it. It'll just happen. Either your agent will be interacting with another one, things, you'll basically say what you want to do and it'll happen. So I think the convenience is going to be a quantum leap from what we see today. And the third aspect, which we touched on before, is it has to be trusted. Because particularly if you're going to use an AI to do financial transactions for you, for example, or to do certain tasks, you have to be sure that it's going to do what you asked and you're comfortable with that and you trust it, because otherwise I think we're going to have a lot of issues with AI. So I think those are the three fundamental aspects that I think will be materially different than they are today, because people today are still a bit hesitant about AI. Can I really trust it? Is the information I'm getting, from the bot correct? Is this really designed just for me? So I think that'll change materially. When it comes to, areas that are ahead, I mean, obviously Silicon Valley tends to lead with a lot of innovative ideas. I mean, but also China, I think increasingly now is coming up with very cost-effective, innovative ways to solve problems. And I think ultimately we'll be able to leverage both to try to get a best of breed. Now, some of it may be affected geopolitically. I think even when it comes to, as you mentioned earlier, large language models, where do you use it? Is it a Saudi-approved model, or is it okay to use an external model? So I think all these things will be worked out, but you are seeing already AI native only companies are designing it from scratch. They're digital. Everything is voice activated. You don't have to type anymore. You just say what you want, understands it, executes it. So I think it's starting to happen, but it's not mainstream, particularly because in many cases, the regulatory environment isn't there. Some of the customer protections are not in place. But I think in certain fields where those are not big factors, I think those are the ones that'll move the fastest.
Joe, there was one other point that I think maybe it's a warning, maybe it's just an observation, but I think the winners and losers will be, the cycle will be a lot faster now. And I was chief digital officer at MetLife for many years. And what I realized at MetLife was that it's a large insurance company, was every person will be insured. Question is whether or not you have, in an intelligent way, chosen to insure that person, or that person was left for you to insure by somebody else. And so not only do you get intelligent selection, we'll get adverse selection. And so I think that the cycle time for companies on the learning cycle, learn more rapidly, will accelerate. And I think those that are on the wrong side of the equation will be exposed a lot more rapidly within the next 5 years.
Great, thank you. And it's been a great conversation. It's been a whirlwind. It's gone by very quickly. I invite everyone to connect with you after this session, right? I'm sure you'll be around the conference center and you'll be happy to share some of your thoughts, or you can dig into some of the conversation that you had here. But genuinely, thank you for joining me here today. And if we could give them a round of applause.
Thank you.
Thank you. Great. And next, I'll invite Noha up, who will get us ready for the next phase.